You are listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network.
Welcome to Scuderia F1, the podcast that's always up to speed with the latest Formula One news. Follow us on Twitter at Scuderia F1 Pod and subscribe to the show on iTunes and Stitcher. Now, here are your hosts, Mark Dailey and Kevin Laramée.
Good day, good night, and welcome back to Scuderia F1. And Mark, to start the show today, I have to be quite honest with you, the last 15 hours of my day today has been pretty much focused on motorsport in one shape or form. I've watched the entirety of the 1995 Indy 500, inspired by watching 4 hours of Fernando Alonso running his first laps at Indy.
Isn't that amazing? Wasn't it like an impromptu stream that they had up? And didn't they get something like 500,000 or 600,000 people watching at one point? 800,000. Wow.
It was supposed to just go up until noon. They're like, okay, well, we have 500,000 people right now. Well, let's just keep going. Let's just keep going. And they went up to 4 p.m. live with the entirety of the 24-minute press conference, which I will put up on the network by itself. Alonso's press conference after the testing today. Officially, it's called the Rookie Orientation Program. So that's what he did today. He had the entire track and the entire complex for himself. And I'm going to upload later on, probably tomorrow, the entirety of the press conference that he did after.
Well, it's quite impressive, too. I mean, I don't think there was any doubt that he wouldn't be able to qualify or at least get cleared to race. But I think it's quite impressive to see how quickly he kind of progressed through the different speeds and how quickly that he actually went through it. I mean, there's no debate on how good of a driver Fernando Alonso is. But it seems that he's coming to terms with the new car and the new style of racing quite quickly. Obviously, of course, tempered with the fact that he is brand new to IndyCar and to ovals and things like that. But at least from the standpoint of a very first outing in the car, I think it's quite impressive.
Yeah, no, it's quite impressive. And you could tell that the Mario Andretti, which was on the panel of talking heads, the director of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway as well, all the different experts were all surprised. We're all impressed. And the mechanics, they talked to different mechanics, and the mechanics were like, well, he's asking the right questions. He's getting the feel. He's already doing what it needs to be done on the track. He's trying different lines for different aspect of the race. Yes, the first time you turn left coming down the straight at 220 miles an hour and you need to turn flat out, it is quite daunting. And he mentions it in the press conference. And let's just go there, Mark, right now. Let's just give a little taste of Fernando Alonso at Indy. It's about 1 minute. The first one is after the phase 3, which was the rookie orientation program as a whole was done, and after phase 4, which he went flat out for the first time. So let's start with phase 3.
What the oval was, you run a simulator yesterday. Did it have that same feel?
Yeah, I think the feeling on the simulator is quite realistic, and you have the first touch, the first impression of how it's going to be. But then the real car is just a unique feeling. So when you have to go flat out in the corner, it's not the same in the simulator than the real car. But yeah, so far has been good. The team, amazingly helpful. Everyone, Marco, this morning, etc. So yeah, running alone, I think is quite okay. We'll see later on the next weeks.
It's kind of cool when you see the pit board says 220. I mean, that's in 50 laps. You went 220.
Yeah. I think, as I said, it was so far, a good experience. But now I think it's start the real deal.
All right. Thanks for your time, Fernando. Have fun the rest of the day. Kevin? It is easy.
And now, after phase 4.
Some pit lane entries, some pit lane exits, more practice I do, better it gets. So, yeah, hopefully we can run a little bit more. Rain is hitting us probably shortly, but hopefully we can put some more runs together.
It doesn't get dark till 8, so you could probably run till 8 if we had enough tires.
Well, we don't have tires anymore, but I think the main concern now is the rain. That is coming. If it doesn't rain, I think we will put some more runs.
Messing with the bars and stuff, just kind of trimming the thing out a little bit. Did that you could feel instantly?
When you put new tires, I think it masks a little bit the problem, so it masks the lower level of downforce. So now we're playing a little bit with old tires, new tires, and different trims. But I was able to feel all the changes. I play a little bit with the front bars, with the weight jackers. So all these new things for me. But that I really need to have a taste now.
Mario was watching you on the monitor, and he said, he said that guy looks like he's been here for 20 years. Did it feel that comfortable?
No, not at all. Not at all. I was getting up to speed. The circuit, it looks so narrow when you are at that speed. When you watch on television or when you are on the simulator, everything seems bigger and easier. When you are in the real car, it's very, very narrow. So I was trying different lines and things like that, but really not as comfortable as I will be probably in a couple of weeks' time.
When you think about you're going 227 miles an hour, turning into a corner, that's a brand new experience, and it looks like you've picked it up really well.
Yeah, at the beginning, I have to be honest, the right foot has his own brain, his own power, and it was not connected with my brain. So I wanted to be flat out that the right foot has its own life, and right now I'm more in control with my body and control with the car, so I'm able to be flat out.
All right, thanks. Good job.
Well, at least it seems like he's having fun.
That's very true. I think from what I was just listening to that, I was thinking the same thing. As I recognize the voice, but laughter and I guess the emotion of happiness is something that we just haven't really heard too much from Fernando Alonso. But good for him, and it's great to see him fitting in right away. And I mean, the thing that sort of really stands out to me so far is he sounds like a guy that's been racing in Indy for a while. Do you not get that same impression, Kevin?
Yeah, and that's exactly what Mario Andretti and everybody else said. The Posies, Sam Posey was over there as well today, and Richard Thorg, I forget all the names, but all like Indianapolis legends that were there to watch Fernando Alonso. And there was a fan group too. There was like I don't know how many, but we didn't see them on camera, but they were coming off a pit lane. There was a bunch of fans with flags for Alonso, which was kind of fun to see. But he did check all the boxes. He went up to 222 miles an hour. That's kind of crazy. It's over 340 kph. It's kind of amazing. It seems like he's having fun. And we mentioned 800,000 people watching it. Hashtag Alonso runs Indy. People were talking about it. The crossover aspect, right? When you have TV shows that cross over and creates an event, it's always more popular for both guys, right? For both TV shows. Movies, like all the Marvel movies, and when they make a big movie with all of them, it's the biggest thing ever. Well, crossovers work. It's proven. And in this world now, motorsport, we have the crossover of Alonso just for one race, but trust me, with the amount of eyes that are being opened in Europe, in America, people discovering each other, people discovering like, oh, people like it when we work together. I think it's the beginning of a trend. It's the beginning of something. We might see more of it. Maybe as big as F1 team having an Indy team, an Indy team eventually having an F1 team, and those type of crossovers and switcheroos and having more people talking about it. But a lot of people are talking about it. Since when did we talk about Indy 500? It's been decades. And since when did people in Indianapolis talk about F1? That's been decades too. So both worlds getting to know each other again in a way that's non-condescending, in a way that not somebody thinks he's better than somebody else, but to be like, all right, maybe we can work together.
Well, that's a very good point. And that is so true. It's just like they are two completely different types of racing. And you either, you can't really compare them. They're apples and oranges, and I think you have to take Formula One for what it is, and you have to take Indy cars for what it is, and just embrace them in their own uniqueness. But as you say, it is great to see that overlap and this collaboration between the two. And Fernando racing in Indy has rekindled a lot of interest in the Indy 500, especially for guys like you and me, who at one point when we had like Greg Moore, Jacques Villeneuve, and Patrick Carpentier, and Scott Goodyear, and Paul Tracy, all these great Canadian drivers. I mean, going back 15 or 20 years now already. But since that kind of went and dwindled out, and as the series and everything changed, my interest honestly has gone down. But having Fernando going over to race in Indy has really got me interested in it again. And apparently we're not the only ones, because there were still 700,998 other people watching, if my math is correct. So for a test, right?
There's been a raise of ticket demands. There's been it's not official where everywhere where the race will be broadcast in all the countries, right? The rights are not sold. Like in Spain, these users don't really care about Indy racing. Well, they're in negotiation to have it broadcasted over there because somebody in Spain TV wants it now. And this is just a drop in the bucket of what it means for a series. And people are like, okay, well, they like it. And now people being open about, this crossover thing, drivers want to drive. And in the complete press conference that you can hear on the network, probably already up by the time you listen to this, you hear Alonso saying, look, I want to drive, and it's fun to just drive fast, and it's different. It may be not as sophisticated technologically, and I think that's the best way to put it without being degraded. It's not as good as a car. It goes faster sometimes than F1, depending on the circumstances, but it's not as sophisticated mechanically. And that's kind of a throwback, and that's what Alonso mentioned in the press conference. We all started with those kind of cars, and it's kind of a throwback. It's kind of fun to actually have control of the car. You feel the car. There's no power steering where you don't feel. It's hard. You have to press that clutch. You have to press that. He's talking about the right foot. You have to press it hard, and sometimes it's not easy, And those type of feeling of what it seems to be, it's Alonso discovering racing once again, and maybe giving him that fire, that motivation that he will need to finish the season with McLaren, because it's not going to be easy.
Well, right. I mean, that's an excellent point, because if you kind of listen to the audio that Fernando was just in that interview just a couple of minutes ago, and you compare that to the race radio at Sochi just a couple of days, I mean, it's night and day.
That's like 3 days before, 3 days removed.
It's like it's a completely two different people, because when his McLaren rolled to a stop at the entry to the pit lane there, you hear the guy the engineer over the radio saying, "Come on, Fernando, you got to try it 2 or 3 times to see if you can get it going." He's like, "I already tried it. You come and try it." Throws his gloves into the cockpit and just kind of walks back to the pit. So
himself, "You piece of beef."
Well, exactly, right. So, but it leads to another question that I have. That obviously you have a month-long testing before the 500 at the end of May, and I just have to wonder that if it was any other race except for besides Spain in 2 weeks, would Fernando just give it a miss? Go to Russia, race there. Well, assuming he actually was able to get started in the race, but after Russia, okay, guys, bye. We'll see you in June, right? But obviously, it's his home Grand Prix at Barcelona, and then you got the 500 afterwards at the same weekend as Monaco. I think that if it wasn't the Spanish Grand Prix coming up, Fernando wouldn't be there for the entire month.
Maybe that's a fair chance, but he mentioned something too, that he hasn't been home since Australian Grand Prix. So he's going to be 4 days at home. That's like his vacation. So now, as we are talking, he's probably back in his home for 4 days. And then it's the Spanish Grand Prix. And then he's back to Indy. But the thing is, he really is up for it in Indy. And we're like, oh, he doesn't really. I thought before the beginning of today that he might not have a shot. But he got the same car that won last year. he's got the same type of support behind him that the best cars in Indy racing right now. That's the exact car that they're giving him. It's that McLaren, well, McLaren just by name, pretty much just by the sticker, but it's an Andretti Honda. And that's the car that Alexander Rossi won Indy 500 last year. And he's going to be one of his 5 teammates because there'll be 6 cars for that quote unquote big, massive team. Andretti, which is a classic name in motorsport in North America, but in the world too, right? Mario Andretti, the grandfather right now, was in F1. Michael was more in Indy, and Marco is in Indy right now. The youngest, like the grandkid, pretty much. But that's the type of support that Fernando Alonso has behind him. So I'm actually, like, because of all the testing and the qualification process and the acclimatization and the rookie orientation program and all the laps that we will have, he has more laps. He will do more laps in the setup to the Indy 500, almost that he would do in the actual Indy 500. So an amazing program to get ready for a race. He will be ready. And I think he might be competitive. The only thing that needs to be seen now is how he deals with other cars on the track. And that's not a small feat. It's pretty important in a race to see how you deal with other cars next to you. But so far, so good. And you know what? It brings a positive story for McLaren Honda. It gives a positive story, a positive experience, an experiment, basically, for Fernando Alonso. Gets people talking. It gives a boost of immense popularity right now for Indy 500. So pretty much everyone's a winner with this right now.
Well, definitely. And I think that McLaren and Fernando needed to do something because, I mean, they're just, I wouldn't even say that they're going sideways in Formula One right now. It just seemed that
backwards.
Backwards.
And getting start races now. It's been 2 races in a row, one of their cars doesn't start.
Well, and you would just have thought that at this point that something would be happening. I mean, it's almost seemed that right from the very first test session at Barcelona back in February, that things just weren't going right, and it just seems to go from bad to worse to even much worse, you know. And I know that they have an engine upgrade coming.
Sorry, Mark, I was just going to make a bad joke saying bad towards the, yeah, you know where.
Well, pretty much. And that's the thing. I mean, it's just, there's no positive press around there. I mean, if you have like Stoffel Van Dorn in China, not even getting into the car, in Bahrain, not even getting into the car to compete, and then Alonso rolls to a stop before even making it to the starting grid. I mean, these are just things that you do not expect to see from McLaren Honda, and well, not from McLaren definitely, but and even Eric Boulier, the team principal, he said McLaren does not go to a Grand Prix to finish 14th. Well, Eric, I hate to say that you're being optimistic, but I mean, you guys can't even start the race right now.
Finish 14th would be quite good for McLaren right now. They can't even start the damn races. And that's what's the shame of it, right? And by that happening too, they made everyone stress in the paddock for that one extra formation lap. Because what we forget is Formula One are not made to sit on a grid and just wait while they are running and just gather temperature. No. They're made because they have no radiator. That car doesn't have a radiator. No. It might be sophisticated, but every ounce of space is accounted for. You don't have space or weight place for radiator, so it cools when it runs with air.
Yep.
So it just stands on the grid like this. Everybody was stressing in the paddock. Geez, thanks, Fernando. Thank you, Honda. Thanks, McLaren, for this, because now we all have to hope that nothing blows in the next lap.
Well, that's right. I mean, to their credit, I mean, race control had them go around very quickly. It didn't take very long for them to signal the extra formation lap. Unfortunately, Fernando's car wasn't really in the most awkward place, so they were able to deal with it quite quickly. And it's interesting too that all the cars that retired from the race were all as a result of something else. Grosjean and Jolyon Palmer canceled each other out in the first corner accident, and then a little bit later on, it was Danny Ricciardo who had a fire on his right rear brake, and that was kind of something to see. But they were all fairly early retirements in the race, and again, I was kind of wondering, well, how many cars are we going to lose from this one? Because at one point it seemed like they were going to start dropping like flies, but then it sort of stabilized and we didn't lose anybody else.
Well, after what? After one lap, we already had 3 cars down.
Yeah, I mean, Ricciardo didn't last more than, I can't remember what lap he retired, but he didn't last very, very long at all.
Yeah, but still, there was a big difference, right? We're like, geez, it's going to be what, 10. I was waiting for Lance Stroll to not finish. And actually, that didn't happen. It got close, like a few laps in. Like was out of the racetrack, came back in, and everything was fine. But yeah, let's do the bi-weekly segment, taking a stroll with Lance. Finally, Lance Stroll, the Canadian, finishing a race, not in the point, but Mark 11th, only 2 spots behind his teammate in 9th spot, Felipe Massa. Lance Stroll, he was careful. He was conservative. He needed to finish a race, and he's been impressive. He was able to keep pace with great cars between the Toro Rossos. He split the Toro Rosso, so that's a positive. I think it's a lot of positive to build on Lance Stroll's performance. So for once, taking a stroll with Lance is going to be positive and, well, close to the points. First checkered flag of his career.
Well, what's that old saying that from small beginning come great things or something like that? So
from the bottom, now we're here.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a good positive thing for Lance. I mean, obviously, when you look at it, well, 11th, it doesn't seem all that great. But like you say, he's only 2 spots behind his teammate, Felipe Massa. But just finishing was something good because, I mean, he had a brake failure in Australia, and then he crashed with Perez in China, and then with Sainz in Bahrain. So it was just good for him to finish. You just got to get that out of the way. And of course, with Lance, I mean, he's getting to learn the circuits. And as Alonso even pointed out in that interview, that the simulator can only do so much for you. It's completely different when you actually get into the car. And no matter how well that simulator does prepare you, there still is nothing like getting in there, feeling the road in between, underneath you, and feeling the wind and all those things that make that experience of driving a racing car. So a good positive for Lance, although, like you say, it did look touch and go there a couple of times, especially on the opening lap. And how unfortunate, just before the safety car came out, he got hit from behind by Nico Hülkenberg. But he kept it going. He didn't stall it, and he didn't suffer any damage. So that was a good thing, because when I saw him spin around like that, I thought, oh boy, this poor kid can't catch a break. Can't catch a break at all.
No, exactly. And quickly before we move on, Mark, news that happened since the last time we spoke, since the preview last week. Honda has announced that they will be partnering up with Sauber starting next year. Well, I don't know, what does it say about Sauber? They can't really be worse either. Finished 15th, 16th, the last 2 cars running in this race in the Russian GP. For Honda, it's more data, it's more partners, it's more motors running at the same time. Obviously, give you more potential to grow and become better. Eric Boulier, when he was asked of McLaren, says, yeah, it's positive. It was maybe about the right time right now that they have new people and bigger capabilities and resources in the engine factory. So maybe it's the right time, and maybe there's something we don't know happening where maybe there won't be 4 cars. Maybe it's only going to be 2, and McLaren's going to drive something else. We don't know. But as for now, Honda is announced to be the partners with Sauber starting next year.
Yeah, it kind of makes me wonder what is happening behind the scenes, because McLaren does have that option to be able to break that contract with Honda after this year. I think, doesn't the deal run to 2024 or 2022 or something like that? It's a very long-term deal.
That's a good loophole that you mentioned, because McLaren had to agree for that deal to happen with Sauber. So McLaren said yes for that deal to happen. So they had the veto on it.
Yeah, well, that's interesting too, and I guess with Sauber, like you say, I mean, maybe it's a calculated risk. I mean, they are running the year-old spec Ferrari engine, so that obviously isn't delivering.
No, well, the big difference is, except now they're just buying an engine, basically, right?
Yeah,
they're just buying the old Ferrari engine, probably at a discount because they don't have a lot of money, but they're just either given or they're taking in that engine. Now it's different. They'll be partners with Honda, so they'll be building more around that engine. It's the power unit. It's the way to get everything together. It's the technological partnership on a day-to-day basis, right? That's going to be helpful for Sauber that they don't have right now.
And obviously Sauber is going to be hoping that whatever happens between now and the end of this season, that Honda is going to get their act together with that engine, because they were saying again after the Russian Grand Prix that their big engine upgrade with the redesign is still to come. What was it, in time for the Canadian Grand Prix, maybe Monaco? So, I mean, it's still a month-ish away before they get the new engine in there. And they're saying that once they get this engine upgraded, that they will have better reliability. They will have more power. And those are the two things that obviously they're lacking right now. So if they can actually do that, and they can maybe start delivering something, maybe actually getting out there and racing and finishing races and giving Van Dorn and Alonso some power to actually compete for more than say a 10th or a 12th or something like that, then that will be positive. Just they need something positive. But it was, in my mind, an interesting announcement. I have to admit that when I saw that, I thought, wow, well, interesting choice by Sauber to think that they're better off with an unreliable Honda engine than a year-old Ferrari engine.
Yeah, and Mark, we did a big travesty in the show, a big tragedy. It's been more than 20 minutes that we're talking about, and we haven't even mentioned the name of the winner of the 2017 Russian Grand Prix, Valtteri Bottas of Mercedes, with a great start, great first lap, took over before the first corner, and was able to hold on by not even a second at the end to Vettel. But Valtteri Bottas of Mercedes first, Sebastian Vettel second, Kimi Räikkönen third for Ferrari, 2 on the podium. But the highest step belongs to Mercedes.
Yeah, and that was a fantastic start by Bottas. When they got down into that first corner there, I had to rub my eyes and take a second look. I'm just like, is that who I think it is? Like, that was one hell of a start by Bottas. And when you see the replay of it, Räikkönen got away slow. Vettel got away slow, but not as slow as Räikkönen. But the thing that really cost him was he left Bottas too much room on the outside of the track. He had more than a car width, and he was quicker, so he was able to get into that first corner. And it seems kind of bizarre to say that race was over at the first turn, but it really was. And yeah, but I mean, Sochi, like that, it is a bit of a weird track because you have that really long straightaway from the start finish with that bit of a dog leg before you get into that sort of chicane deal. It's not really a chicane, but that first corner, you have that long sweeping turn and then a couple of short turns with some 90-degree angles, and it sort of tightens up at the end. So it's not really a track for overtaking, but I really thought that just the way that it played out in the pit stops was kind of interesting. I mean, Ferrari went for the overcut and it didn't really work. And what I thought was fascinating was that after they switched and Vettel and Bottas were both running the super soft tires in that second stint, that the Ferrari was better with the super softs, but it still took a long time before he really started to pull them in. And I really didn't think it was going to come down to those last couple of laps. But I mean, Seb came close, but ultimately he didn't get quite close enough to put a move on Bottas. But if he had to lose to a Mercedes, I think at this point he'll be happier to say that it was that it was Bottas on the top step compared to Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, exactly. Lewis Hamilton never really was quite in this race. I don't know what was wrong with his Mercedes or with him, or the combination of both. He was lacking pace. He was lacking consistency. He was lacking luck. He was lacking pretty much everything this weekend for Lewis Hamilton. Ferrari were up to speed, But I think Valtteri Bottas finally figured out how to get the most out of his car, at least at this circuit, and was able to take advantage of a race. Sometimes we don't talk about this as much, but I think Bottas really set up his car for the race, even when he did his qualifying run. So when it wasn't after, his car was more ready for the first lap and the ensuing race. So Vettel might have got the pole and first Ferrari front row, right, with Raikkonen next to him, but Bottas might have been set up for the race.
Yeah, that's a very good point, but I was really quite surprised at the difference between the two Mercedes cars, because it was almost if they had reversed, and they never really did come clean as to what the problem with Hamilton's car was. Toto Wolff said afterwards that he just couldn't get the tires to work, and they're having problems keeping it in that optimal temperature to get the tires working. And then Hamilton, he kind of alluded to the fact that he knew what the problem was, but he wasn't more forthcoming than that. And
they're not going to say it, but then tires don't just stop working. So it's so minuscule what makes the car go great or not, right? And the brake pads, there's a lot of controversy this year with the materials of the brake pad in the paddock. Drivers keep on changing and they feel it affects or not the performance of the car or not. The brake pad itself has over 120 holes in it that lets the heat evacuate from the brake pads to go directly to the tires. So it could be something simple as maybe because we did have brake issues. It hasn't resulted in dramatic consequences for Mercedes this year, but they had some brake issues. So it could have been as simple as the heat doesn't evacuate properly from the brake pads to generate the right heat for the tires for Lewis Hamilton. So you have a problem that's not even related to the cause of the actual problem to begin with. That is a result of why your car is not going that great. Example here, which is your tires are not hot enough. But it's not nothing because of the tire, nothing regarding the suspension or the downforce. No, maybe it's something with your brakes that makes your tires not go as high. And it's so delicate, the fine tuning of those cars, that it's difficult. It's nice to pinpoint the problem.
Yeah, well, I know one thing that they were saying, or at least Toto Wolff was saying, that the balance in Lewis's car wasn't really working for him in that final sector. So he was losing time there. But I mean, he wasn't really close to, say, Raikkonen. And it was definitely very much a race between the two Ferraris and Bottas, although Kimi at one point didn't really realize that he was behind Bottas. I don't know if you heard that clip from the race radio, but that was quite amusing that Kimi was unaware of who the race leader was. But I think, though, just talking about Bottas now himself, that I think that this weekend he's answered some questions, because when they came out with the announcement that he was going to replace Nico Rosberg and he was going to be there on a 1-year contract with an option for 2018, that it really sort of signaled that with guys like Vettel and Alonso being out of contract at the respective teams at the end of this year, that perhaps Mercedes were going to keep all their options open, which you would expect. I mean, they obviously want to win, and there are many different factors, including a driver, that are going to help them do that. But I think by Bottas winning in only his 4th race for the team, I think it really goes to prove something, that he really deserves to be there, and he's really earned that spot. I mean, he had pole position in Bahrain a couple of weeks ago, so he's really settling into the team nicely. And like I say, I mean, there's no better way to make that statement than winning a Grand Prix and then just beating your teammate, who just happens to be a 3-time world champion, on the track, and doing so in such an emphatic manner.
I agree. And I will go as far as to say, as right now, in my mind, it's number 1A for Mercedes. It's Valtteri Bottas and Lewis Hamilton, both at equal footing. They both have a win in 2017. They both should be treated equally. There shouldn't be any team directive. there shouldn't be any favoring. It's no. Both are number one drivers in my mind right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, Bottas is certainly making that case for the team as it stands this year. I mean, obviously, Lewis is going to have something else to say about that. And Mercedes is saying all the right things, that there's a good relationship between the drivers and that sort of stuff. But it just makes me wonder, could the relationship between Valtteri Bottas and Lewis Hamilton ever get to the peak toxicness that Rosberg and Hamilton did over the last couple of years? And I think that perhaps, what was it, Spa in 2014, when they had that coming together on the first lap, and Nico punctured Lewis's tire, and Lewis ended up limping all the way back to the pits, and because that was really sort of a benchmark moment in that sort of era of the team, because Rosberg was reprimanded, and Wolff came out and said that they have the right to terminate contracts and all these sorts of things, and it really, I think, set the tone for the I don't know about maybe the hierarchy is the correct word in the World Championship that year. I mean, Lewis won. It wasn't as close as last year, but that was very much a defining moment. And somewhere along the line, Rosberg learned to stand up for himself. And there were obviously a number of occasions when they collided with each other, like in Austria last year, and the famous tangle that they had at, what was it, turn 3 or 4 at Barcelona last year, where they both ended up in the gravel trap. And it got pretty chilly between the two of them. So I don't know if could we see that with Bottas as well? Possibly. But
I think it would probably come, Mark, from the other side, though. I don't think it would come from Bottas, but do you really think Lewis Hamilton is going to be really, really happy if he gets beat day week in, week out by his teammates? Eventually, something's bound to happen, or just, like, let's face it, things have been cordial between the two. But Lewis Hamilton hasn't come out in the press or wherever embracing his new teammate with open arms either, right?
Yep.
He's just saying the right things, but he's not saying like, I'm going to learn from... No, he's establishing a certain amount of, I'm still here, I'm still the guy, you should be talking about me kind of attitude, which is all well and fair if you're Lewis Hamilton and 4 times world champion. You can do what the F you want. It's fine. But I'm going to call it as I see it, and he hasn't been as quote unquote mean or passive aggressive as he has been towards Nico, but it's still very young. If something happens, I think we might see the true colors of either down the road.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. I think that's a great point that you're making, and I think very much that it would be probably from Lewis's side. I think that he's very good at playing that mental side of the game, like, and also I guess the political side of Formula One. I mean, Lewis knows what it takes to win, both on and off the track, and I think that if he can find a way to gain an advantage, or maybe find a little way to gain a little bit of an upper hand on Bottas, if things don't go his way a little bit more, then yeah, I think that Lewis will absolutely go there. Bottas, yeah, I just can't see him doing those sorts of things. I mean, maybe it's just because he is Finnish and he's more reserved. I mean, I thought that the audio, his reply when you hear him cross the finish line, his engineer is absolutely over the moon. He didn't call him Nico this week, which was a good thing, but
forward.
Yeah, which was a bit of a one of those oops things I wish I could take back moments, but it was so different because you get a little bit of a chuckle out of Valtteri with a bit of F me, that took a while, referring to it took his 81st Grand Prix that he entered before he finally won one.
You just remind me of a stat. This was the 71st Grand Prix since the last one that Fernando Alonso won, by the way.
Gosh, yeah, I knew it had been a while, and well, I mean, going back to the full circle to the conversation we started the show with this week is that, well, I mean, based on what we've seen, I mean, sadly, it could be another 71 before Fernando gets back on the top step of the podium if he ever makes it there again. So
you almost have the entire career of Valtteri Bottas in Formula One. And 10 more races.
Then 10 more races.
10 less.
10 less.
But yeah. Almost. So it almost spends one Valtteri Bottas.
Yeah, but the other thing that we should just mention, we did say that the race was basically over by the first corner, but I think that this was the race that maybe, I guess, exemplified what some of the concerns were, I guess, among some of the drivers. Because I know Lewis was quite vocal at times during winter testing about the new regulations and just what would be possible in terms of overtaking with these new cars. But we didn't really see too many people get close. There was virtually no overtaking on the track whatsoever. I mean, Vettel did do pretty good there. I mean, he was really flying at the end of the race there. And unfortunately, Felipe Massa, well, unfortunate if you're Sebastian Vettel, just was in the wrong position on the track right at that crucial moment. But I mean, still, there was no guarantee, even though he was a second or less than a second behind Bottas at that point, that he was going to pass him on that last lap. But it was from that point of view, I think, quite disappointing, because I mean, we've seen a fair amount of overtaking so far this year, but not a great place for overtaking in regular circumstances, and the next couple of tracks really aren't the best for that either, both at Barcelona and Monaco as well.
Oh, Monaco, no, that's for sure. But just to go back on Massa for a second, then you have to take in consideration that if Vettel would have caught Bottas, you still have to get by him. It's not like Bottas is not going to do anything about it. It's like, oh, it's not as simple as, Vettel would have caught him. No, we would have seen a fight, which that's what we wish we would have seen. So that was a suspense. Are we going to see the fight? Are we going to see the fight? Because face it, we've seen Ferrari won twice. We've seen Mercedes won twice. Well, we've seen Vettel won twice, and Bottas and Hamilton won once each. But we never really saw both cars fight each other on the track.
No,
no. One goes and the other one trying to catch up but doesn't, or they're pit stops, and they either pass each other or they get close, but eventually they go back. One being further, the other one trying to catch up. But we never really saw them fight on the track.
No, and I think it really comes back to that pit stop. I mean, obviously Ferrari, they've been quite progressive and quite daring this year with their strategies and the timing of their pit stops. I mean, and it's worked out to them so far. And this past weekend, like we said earlier, they did try to overcut Bottas at the pit stop. And what ended up was that Vettel had tires that were 7 laps newer than Bottas. And I think what really surprised me was that it really took a while before Vettel was able to really start pulling that gap in back towards Bottas, because he wasn't that far behind him. I mean, when you looked at the way how everything shook out and the way that the lap times were going once Bottas had gone in, that Vettel wasn't really pulling too far away from him. And when Bottas rejoined on the super softs and Vettel was running the older ultra softs, they were basically lapping the same lap time within a tenth or two. It wasn't like a huge different one way or another. But when Vettel came back out, if anything, he lost a little bit of time initially, and I think it took quite a while that for his tires to get into that proper optimal temperature range before he could really pull him in and close that gap to Bottas. And it was just too late at that point, because when you looked at the gap and the time and how many laps were left, you just kind of got a feeling even before that last charge there from Vettel in the last several laps, you just kind of looked, I don't know, it's looking pretty tight that he's just not going to catch him unless something happens that Bottas has a bit of a moment, or he gets badly held up by traffic or something like that. But it would have been tough for him to really kind of get right on his rear wing. I mean, if he really had timed it, I guess, best, that maybe he could have come around the back of the circuit, had that DRS and got a bit of a tow and maybe passed him in the last corner, or maybe out-dragged him down the pit straight. But I think that the Mercedes has the straight line speed, so I don't know. I think that Bottas would have had that advantage. Maybe another 5 or 10 laps, maybe not, but
yeah, just not one. Like,
not one.
Look, this one more lap. Getting into DRS zone and trying to overtake him, then you leave yourself open for him to overtake you at the next DRS zone. It's a cat and mouse game that could have been for a little while, right? So one lap would not necessarily have changed it. All right, Mark, I want to take a look at the constructors' standings, if it's okay with you.
Yeah, it's
to wind down the show.
Yeah, it's really shaping up to be a great battle in the Constructors' Championship, and it's really seesawing back and forth between Ferrari and Mercedes, isn't it?
We haven't seen that in a while. A standings that changes the top or the second a few times, right? Mercedes now first, 136 points, but only 1 point behind Ferrari. See, you might win the race, but if the guy finishes second and third, still good, right? So that was the best result for the Constructors' Championship. But I think it's going to be a fascinating race throughout the season. And every car, like Lewis Hamilton led his team down, because if he would have been on the podium, Mercedes would have had a bigger lead right now in the Constructors' Championship. That's that easy. And that's why it's interesting now, because both cars of both teams of Mercedes and Ferrari will be needed for one of them to win the championship. And that's what we were seeing, because there's an amazing drop now to Red Bull at 57, then Force India 31, and then it doesn't really matter after that. What matters is Sauber, no points, and McLaren, no points. They better get points if they want some of that money later down the road.
Definitely. And I think it just sort of highlights what we've been discussing over the last couple of weeks too, is just the pressure that it puts Kimi Räikkönen under, because you look now, Ferrari, who went into Russia leading the constructors by 3 points in the championship, are now just a point behind Mercedes. And if you look at the results that Räikkönen had through those first couple of races, I mean, if it goes back and forth the way that it was like all year long, then that could be the difference between finishing first in the constructors or finishing second. I mean, you can make a pretty good argument that given good, reliable equipment on any Sunday, that Bottas and Hamilton are going to be up there. I mean, this past weekend is an interesting development as far as Lewis Hamilton is concerned. But I mean, Räikkönen, I mean, he wasn't lights out, but I mean, he did what he needed to do, and he got that third podium, that third place, and helped get some extra points for Ferrari. But I mean, he's going to have to do more of that, and I think that it really kind of puts a lot of pressure on him.
And what's fun too, Mark, is the leaders of the Constructors' Championship, Mercedes, are not the leaders of the Drivers' Championship. And that is another interesting aspect right now. The standing is Sebastian Vettel first with 86 points, Lewis Hamilton second, 73, Bottas third with 63, and then Kimi Räikkönen with 49. Bottas is only 10 points behind Lewis, and Lewis is already 13 points behind Vettel. This is going to be interesting there too.
Yeah, and it could really throw a wrench into the works if, say, a team like Red Bull could get their act together, and Vettel has sort of tipped them to join the title race between Ferrari and Mercedes at some point sooner rather than later. I mean, I think that Ricciardo said this week that they have an upgrade coming for Spain, and they need it because there is.
Would say upgrades, if not kind of almost a brand new car.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they've really underwhelmed so far this year. I know that they kind of came into the season not quite as fast and competitive as that they expected, but I think certainly the way that they've really underperformed through the first 4 races of the year is a lot more surprising than I think a lot of people expected. I know that they say that they expect that they can develop the car quite a bit over the course of the year, but they've got a substantial gap to close between Ferrari and Mercedes. I mean, forget Sebastian Vettel and whichever Mercedes driver is quicker on any given weekend, but just closing that gap between themselves and, say, Kimi Räikkönen, who's probably the slowest out of those top 4 drivers at the moment, even that seems like quite a bit of work for them to do.
Yeah, no, for sure. But it will be interesting to see how those upgrades, which basically are brand new cars, more efficient ways to get more out of the engine and all for Red Bulls and Renault in Barcelona. So even Renault itself, the team, not just the engine, because we forget about that. But yeah, even Renault might be better off in Barcelona. But for sure, Red Bull, Max Verstappen, and Daniel Ricciardo will be to watch in Barcelona. Maybe not quite to the level of Ferrari and Mercedes, but maybe closer than we anticipate.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see, because that would really make the championship even more interesting. I mean, it's pretty cool right now to see how, say, Bottas has thrown himself into that conversation just after this past weekend, and to a certain extent in Bahrain. But I mean, if you could get Max Verstappen and Danny Ricciardo kind of challenging and taking points away from the Ferraris and the Mercedes guys, then that would just make it all that much better, I think.
Yeah, imagine if we have 3 teams vying for wins every single weekend. It would start to look like an actual championship of actual race car drivers, right?
And that's what it's all about. Very good, Kevin. So what do we have going on in the network this week?
Soccer Today, big show this morning. Yesterday morning when you listen to this, probably. Earlier this week, put it this way. We have Paul Tenorio to talk about Orlando, Chicago, and the retirement of Francesco Totti. So for soccer fans, a great show. And you can listen to show Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. on the network. And you can follow me on Twitter at Kev Laramée to get all the details.
Very good. And thank you very much for everyone listening to this show. You can follow us on Twitter at Scuderia F1 Pod. That's a wrap. We'll catch you again this time next week.
Thanks for listening to the Scuderia F1 podcast. If you want to get the show notes for this episode, then head over to ScuderiaF1pod.com. Want to get in touch with us? Then email us at ScuderiaF1pod@gmail.com.
You were listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us, sportspodcastingnetwork.com.